Fred.
Chair recognizes Mr. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Crittenbrink, I want to take you down a stroll down memory lane here to fall of 2019 when China realized their first case of the Wuhan virus. Now, it wasn't until January of the next year until they reported it some weeks or months later. And then in February, their top bioweapons expert took control of the lab. Now, the mantra from the press and from the party in the current administration is that it occurred naturally. And of course, people like me, and speaking on behalf of myself, but the millions of Americans who saw all the evidence in front of them that pointed to the lab as opposed to it occurring naturally, those people were vilified in the public. And the new administration used the information to frighten Americans and confuse them and to distort the facts. Based on that, I'm just wondering, does the State Department have any irrefutable evidence that the Wuhan virus came from the wet market in China? Irrefutable evidence. Do you have any?
Congressman, I would point to comments that National Security Advisor Sullivan made on Sunday. He stated that there are a variety of views in the intelligence community.
I know there are a variety of views, but the American people have been taken for a ride for 2 years, more than 2 years over this, and I want to know what evidence the State Department or you have that is used to debunk people's opinions based on what they see and what they know and what is reported as fact. What evidence do you have a bat from the wet market? Does the State Department have one of these bats?
Congressman, I'll state again, there is not a definitive answer that has emerged from the U.S. Intelligence Community on this question.
I'm not asking.
Some elements of the IC.
I'm not asking, sir, I'm not asking about differences of opinion. You work for the State Department. You're the undersecretary, right? You're almost in charge over there. And the State Department speaks for the United States of America. And Americans across the country were ridiculed and vilified for having a difference of opinion. So with all due respect, sir, what facts do you have? Do you have the pangolin where the virus jumped from the pangolin to a human? Do you have it? What facts do you have? Do you have any facts whatsoever to support your claim that the virus occurred in the wet market as opposed to the Wuhan lab?
Well, Congressman, again, I'll state, if you look at what elements of the U.S. intelligence community have said, some have pointed to say they come down on the question that it looks like it was naturally occurring. Some have come down on the other side of that. Some have said we don't have enough evidence to judge. Again, I will say in conclusion, the intelligence community does not have a definitive answer on the COVID origin question. President Biden has directed from the beginning of this administration to take all necessary steps, including all elements of our intelligence community to get to the bottom of it. But the candid assessment—
fair enough. If there
Yes,
are
sir.
difference of opinions, then what authority does the State Department or this government have to refute the opinions based on facts that we do know? Because there are no facts at all that it occurred in a wet market. There are wet market outside of Wuhan, right? There are zero. We all know that, right? But there's plenty of circumstantial evidence, if not more, because a bunch of it was destroyed. We know they destroyed the samples in the lab, right, so that nobody could see them. But if that's the case, will the State Department at least acknowledge that they were wrong and apologize to the millions upon millions of Americans that they disparaged for their opinions based on what they know happened in 2019 in the Wuhan Institute of Virology? Will the State Department acknowledge it and apologize? Will they ever do it?
Congressman, what I will acknowledge and commit to is to doing what the President has said, that we'll use all elements, including in the IC, to get to the bottom of this. But as we stand right now, there is not a definitive answer that has emerged from the intelligence community.
Mr. Secretary, when they finally do get to the bottom of it, if they ever do get to the bottom of it, knowing that the communist Chinese destroyed a bunch of the evidence, knowing that, if they do get to the bottom of it and they do determine that it is the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Will they apologize? Will this State Department apologize to the American people it disparaged?
Congressman, the President has directed his team that we will share with Congress and the American people what we learn. I'll just reiterate, there's not a definitive answer that has emerged from the intelligence community on this question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Thank you.
And let me just say, when we were in the minority, we published a report finding by preponderance of the evidence that did originate from the Wuhan lab. And I feel the latest intelligence has confirmed our opinion, and that can be found on the House Foreign Affairs website.
Mr. Crittenbrink, there's a considerable dispute as to whether COVID came from a wet market or came from the lab. The reason for that dispute is that China was absolutely opaque. They failed to cooperate. They failed to come clean. Millions of people died around the world, and a substantial percentage of them died because of China's obfuscation at the beginning. The State Department has done almost nothing to tell the world how China's responsible, not maybe for the virus, but certainly for their obfuscation and failure to cooperate afterwards. Is the State Department going to do a better job of informing the world of the Chinese Communist Party's responsibility here?
Congressman, thank you. On the issue of COVID, we have long stated that China needs to do a better job of being transparent.
But do people in India and Europe and South America who have lost relatives know that those relatives might be alive if China and its Communist Party had cooperated with the world in the first few months? The answer to that, I'll answer for you, is no, because the State Department has done very little to tell the world.